Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate it. We're here to talk about the next 5 to 10 years of the village's future. And so for those of you that have lived here for a while, you may remember that back in 2014, we announced that we were going to redefine the village experience. And I'll talk in a minute about what that looked like. But for the next 45 minutes or so, I would like you all to join me on a journey as we reimagine the village experience. So for today, we're going to talk a little bit about what we announced in 2014 and the progress that we've made with those plans, as well as some other things that we've been able to do. I'm going to give you an update on some current projects and initiatives that we've been working on. And then we're going to look ahead at some of the programs, amenities, and services that we are looking to add to the resident experience here over the next few years. And then lastly, we're going to talk about campus redevelopment. And I'll tell you what's next and why we are doing what we are doing. My only ask of you all is that we hold all of our questions until the end. We're going to have Lisa and Melissa running around with microphones, so we want to make sure that, one, everyone can hear your questions, and then two, some of the questions you may be thinking as the presentation goes along may be answered at a certain point. So we're just going to start rolling, and we'll do plenty of Q&A at the end if that works for everybody. All right? All right, well, let's dive right in. So I got to remember to point that way. So when we redefined the village experience in 2014, we set out on a pretty ambitious journey. Part of it was to build the new courtyard building. Part of it was to build the meadows. We built a new assisted living memory care on the other side of O'Brien. And then we updated a lot of the common areas of the villager, as well as create some combo units. Partnered with all that redevelopment was a new initiative that we were focused on really with customer service. And that's what we now know as the Pride Initiative that has been thriving for the past 10 plus years. What we didn't announce in 2014, but we've subsequently been able to accomplish, is we've been able to tear down the old Astoria building and rebuild the Village 400 unit. We've completed now 12 phases of the villas, working on the 13th. We did an expansion of the Meadows that we now know as the Meadows East expansion. We were able to renovate places and other parts of the Villager Inn. We built the E building and replaced Lindbergh. We created the Parkinson's Connection, which has been a tremendous resource for people with Parkinson's, both that live here at John Knox Village and within our community. And thanks to your generosity, we now have a dog park and a wonderful Veterans Memorial that just continue to add to the life and culture of the village. And then soon, knock on wood if you're near wood, we will have a brand new clubhouse that you all can enjoy as well. So let's talk a little bit about where we are with some of our current projects that we've been working on. So this is the couple pictures of the Daniel D. Rexroth Recreation Center, or what we are lovingly calling the Rex Center. I will highlight the word hope that's up there, but we are hoping to open this building on January the 19th. This has been a project that I promise is going to be wonderful. It has just had a few hiccups along the way. But as you can see, we've got some great pickleball courts there. We're going to have basketball, a brand new outdoor swimming pool, some really great outdoor spaces for, barbecuing and for, having fire pits. It's another place that we feel you all can create another sense of community. And so that's what we're all about at the Village, is finding ways that we can have community. So this will be another great space for this. We also have a courtside lounge. It's going to be about 1,200 square feet, so it's going to be really good for different neighborhood groups. It's got a kitchenette in there, so it's really exciting. So more to come on this, but fingers crossed that we're able to open this on January the 19th. We are also going to have a dedication for this on March 17th that everyone's invited to. Dan will be here, and we're actually going to have his family come out so we can properly recognize him. And then, of course, you are able to use your badge access to get into the clubhouse. So I mentioned that we're now through 12 phases of the villas. We started phase 13. Once that's completed, we will have done 85 villas across the campus over the last 11 years. This has really changed the face of campus, particularly when you think of the southern side. It is really exciting. You know, we had a conversation this past week that once we finish phase 13, it's getting harder and harder for us to find vacant units that we can pull together to make new. And so that's going to be an area that we continue to focus on because it has been so successful. They are so popular. So we're going to continue to build villas as time and space allows us. All right. And of course, we talked about this in December, but thank you for all of you that contributed to this wonderful project. But we are fully funded for the EMS building. We actually sent that project out to bid in December. We are anticipating getting the bids back next week. And then in February, the management team is going to take this project to the board because we do need to provide interim funding for it. As you're aware, many of the pledges that we received are over a 5-year period. So while we're waiting for those pledges to come, the village is going to supplement the building project. We certainly have waited long enough. We don't want to have to wait 5 more years while each of those pledges come in. So we anticipate that going well with the board. If everything moves accordingly, we're going to start construction on that on March the 1st. And we anticipate that that's going to last about 10 months. So if we're sitting here about a year from now, we should have a brand new EMS quarters for our wonderful team. Yeah, it's very exciting. Okay, so as we look forward, I asked you a little bit ago to reimagine what the village experience could look like. And truthfully, because we've invested in the campus over the last 10 years, it allows us to think bigger, to be bolder, to really reimagine what is possible for us as a community. And so whenever we talk about new initiatives, it's always important to me and the rest of the team that we are just, if not more, focused on services and amenities as we are on buildings, because at the end of the day, and Dan would always say, we can build pretty buildings, but if we don't have the sense of community in and around those buildings, then it really doesn't matter. And so that's what we're always focused on, is making sure that the resident experience is continuing to be excellent for you all, that you enjoy living here, that you're thriving here, that you are engaged in your experience as a resident here. And on top of that, we also want to make this a wonderful place to work. So we have to make sure that this is a great place for our associates to come to every day. And so we're going to be focused as a team on what does the next generation of Pride look like. So we have a great culture here, right? But how do we continue to massage that culture and improve it? We could say, look at our culture and put it on a shelf and let it sit there. But at some point, that's going to get stagnant. So we've always got to be thinking of ways to improve and excel. And so we're going to be focused on how we can continue to ramp up Pride within our organization. We are also looking at some new programs and services. So I'm proud to tell you that one of the things you may have read about in the Village Voice that we're restarting again in January is a grief support group. This is something that we've been asked for many, many years, and we're really excited to launch that. It's going to be represented primarily by our hospice program and our bereavement counselor, but it is such a need on campus as we have residents that are going through the grieving process. We need to make sure that we have those resources. We've really dedicated a lot of time to adding support groups on campus, whether that is Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or caregiver support. And so we want to continue to enhance that. Again, another area that we can help create a sense of community. We are also, as we look at our fitness program, we made the choice a few years ago to make all of our fitness classes free, which in hindsight was a wonderful choice. We want you all to be able to pursue your health and wellness goals. We certainly never want cost to be a barrier. One of the side effects of that decision is that our fitness classes are quite popular. And so we're focused on how we can continue to add value to that. So we are actually working on hiring an additional full-time fitness instructor with more to come. So that's another offering that we're planning in the very near future. And then if you've heard me talk in a resident group, you know that I've been laser focused on this concept of technology. Has anyone heard about artificial intelligence today? So in order for us to successfully leverage AI, we have to make sure that our data is sound. Otherwise, AI is not very useful for us. And so the management team is working on really our data integrity. And so over the next year, we're going to be looking at replacing our electronic medical record with the new one that is going to be a lot easier for our staff to use. It's going to be easy for residents to access, and you may actually get to see your statement online. I know, it's pretty advanced. So we're looking at things like that. We are also in the middle of deploying a new work order system that not only is going to make life a lot easier on you all because you will be able to see where your work orders are. You'll be able to get direct communication on the status, but it's also going to make our operations team much more efficient because they're no longer going to have to run back and forth to the operations building to get paper work orders. Everything's going to be handheld on a tablet for them. And what we do know through a lot of studies that we've seen is that the younger generations of the workforce, one of their most significant asks of their employer is that they have technology that they can utilize to make their jobs more efficient. And many of them are wanting ways that they can use their phone to do their jobs. And we've really lagged in that area. So this is certainly something that we are looking to accelerate over the next probably 2 years or so. But again, all of these things that we talk about, the idea behind it and the intent behind it is that we create a better place to live for you, where we can offer you better services, where if we do have issues, we can fix them more quickly. And then, of course, we're going to continue on our path of campus redevelopment. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. So, before we talk about what we're going to do, I think it's always important to know why we do something. And, you know, one of the beauties of our campus is that we have a rich history and tradition. Part of that is that we have homes that are just 50 plus years old. And in many instances, the current market does not really want to live in the same type of homes that were popular 50 years ago. And so we have to make sure that we are always keeping an eye on both what current residents want and expect, as well as future residents are going to want and expect. The other thing that's been really wonderful to see is we've had 2 back-to-back very successful projects between the Meadows expansion and Courtyard E building that have filled up incredibly quickly. When we first set out to build the Meadows, we had never done anything like that. So we didn't really have a lot of credibility behind our name. And now the market is really seeing that when we set out to do a project, we're going to do it well, and people are really going to be accepting of it. And so we want to make sure that we're leveraging that momentum and keeping it going versus sitting still. One of the benefits that I've mentioned in resident groups of filling the E-building so fast is that we've been able to pay off our temporary debt about 17 months earlier than we had anticipated. So that's going to save the village roughly $280,000. On top of that, those monthly service fees are going to start impacting our financials in April. So it's going to be another positive driver and add more and more financial strength to the village. When I tell people, when people ask what my job is, and you all can poke jokes at what my job is, but really what I view my role is to make sure that there is sustainability for the village for the next 50 plus years. And so we have to continue ensuring that we are doing projects that support our sustainable growth and all the initiatives that we want to work on. Right now, for the first time since I've been here, we have a true waiting list of people that are wanting to come live here. So we have about 90 people that have put down a priority deposit to move into a larger apartment home or a new villa or a larger home on our campus. We know that if we don't create additional inventory, they're going to move elsewhere. And so we want to make sure that we are able to capitalize on that interest. And I think the other thing that's really important, when we talk about projects, oftentimes we think about what that project is going to do for the people that live in that building. But everything we do is supposed to have a positive impact on the village as a whole. And so when you look at the things we've done over the last 10 years, take Courtyard, for example, we were able to add the restaurant and the coffee shop and the movie theater. We all know of the amenities that are in the Meadows. When we did the Meadows expansion, we were able to use some of the proceeds to revamp the Villager and Places. The E-Building helped us be able to do the new rec center. So every time we do a new project, we've also been fortunate to couple it with a new amenity on campus. And that gets me really excited because we are already very amenity rich here compared to other communities. And so the fact that we are able to continue to layer on more and more things, I don't want you all to be bored ever. So we're going to continue to work on that throughout our campus. The other thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about this here in a few slides, but our market has changed dramatically over the last few years. I've mentioned in a couple of resident councils that a life plan community is a reflection of the neighborhood that it is in. And we have been very fortunate that as we have grown and changed, Lee Summit continues to grow and change and is thriving right now. I know every day when I drove home from work, I see that there's a new Chick-fil-A and we're getting a Costco and we're getting a new Q39. I mean, there's all kinds of new things that are happening. So we are really, really fortunate to live in a town like Lee Summit right now. But it has changed our market. So really in the last 10 years, the number of age and income qualified people that live in our primary market has doubled. And when we look at the data from even just the last 2 years since we did market analysis, that number has grown by 20 to 30%, depending on the demographic. That's huge growth that we see. And so we've made the decision as a management team and working closely with our board of directors that we're going to leverage on all of these different things that are happening in our world and make a significant investment into the village over the next 5 to 10 years. Again, the numbers tell a story. So we've always talked about the idea of incremental redevelopment. There are retirement communities that have kind of gotten over their skis because they've tried to do too much too fast. And so we've really honed in on this idea that we're going to just systematically redevelop the campus with the idea that if things go well and projects sell well, that we could always accelerate that process if we needed to. Just for a number standpoint, if we kept the pace that we've been doing for the last 10 years, it would take us almost 30 years to redevelop all of our congregate living. It would take us another 14 years to do our non-congregate living, and the village would be 80 years old when we were all finished. The Meadows would be 30. And so that's a really, really long time. Also, we're keeping an eye on what's happening around us, and we know that the baby boomers are here. We know that they started turning 75 in 2020, and I'll show you a graph here in a second, but the growth of people over the age 75 in our country is staggering. So if you look at this chart, this will show you that over the next 10 years, we're going to add 11.5 million people over the age of 75 in our country. And Lee Summit, again, as a growing community, is going to benefit that. And so we are going to have housing issues over the next 10 years. As you look towards 2040, when it stabilizes, what you will see is it's not going down. So the number of people that are over 75 are going to remain constant for a very, very long time. The other thing that's important to know about this data is it's all public. So while we have this data, so do all of our competitors. So they can see all the different market forces. They know what's happening in Lee Summit. And so if we choose not to capitalize on this information, we know that somebody else will. So whenever we embark on a project, you all typically we'll see the exciting things, right? When we put shovels in the ground, we start going vertical. But the vast majority of the work actually happens before we even pick up a hammer. And so we've been in this phase for the last 2 years where we've been working on conceptually what the future of the village could be. We have a lot of analysis that we do. I mentioned the market. We also have to look at the cost of the project. We have to look at how we're going to finance something. We have to engage with partners to validate our numbers. We never want to make assumptions that our math is perfect. And so we bring in outside help to validate or invalidate, in many instances, some of the assumptions that we're making. And then we develop a plan that kind of gels and is cohesive amongst all those. Once we have a project that we're comfortable with and we're ready to go to financing, before we can even do that, we have to get 50 to 70% of the units pre-sold before the bondholders will feel comfortable with that. And I've mentioned a couple times that we go to the bond market, and that is very typical for not-for-profit senior livings to do that, because typically we get better interest rates than if we were to do a traditional bank loan. And so we tend to go to the bond market for most of our financing. We have multiple iterations of each project where we will bring it to the board for them to advance it. So it is never an assumption that a project is going to work and then the board turns a blind eye and we go forward. We have a lot of what we call go, no-go scenarios. And so we're constantly keeping them updated on the pre-sales, on the cost of the building, on the terms of the loans, things like that, before we move forward. And then once we get a final vote from the board of directors, that's typically when we do a bond issuance, which is a lengthy process. When we took the e-building to the bond markets, we were fortunate that we had 200% interest in those bonds. So people really like what we're doing. They see the value of what we're doing, and there's a lot of excitement for investment into the village. And then we begin the exciting part. We start building new buildings, which are fun to go up. And then lastly, and most importantly, is when we start to bring new residents and new life to the campus. So, we've heard that the rumor mill has been buzzing. And, our communication philosophy has always been, we're not going to talk about a project until we have board approval. And there's a lot of reasons that go into that, but we never want to create a sense of excitement or anxiety or fear or you name any of the other emotions that, we could think of for something that may or may not ever happen. So when we bring information to our associates and residents, we want to make sure we have board approval so that there is a green light for that. And again, there's a lot of uncertainty, but if you've been paying attention, and many of you have, you may have noticed that in certain areas of campus, there are surveyor flags. There may have been a drill on campus on Monday doing soil samples. There are vacant units that we are no longer selling. So we know that you all are paying attention to what's going on, and that's really why we wanted to have this meeting today, is to address it head on. There are some projects that are 100% board approved, and we are moving forward rapidly. There are some other more conceptual ideas that we've gotten the board approval to do what we call a pre-development phase, and we're going to talk about those as well. A lot of this will not take place for another couple of years. So we always want to be sensitive to that. And again, there are, I will reemphasize that you all are hearing this information for the first time. And so I'm sensitive to that. But I do want you to know, as residents of this community, that we have been working on this plan with our board of directors for over 2.5 years. So we're going to make sure that, when you leave this room, you still may have questions, and we'll talk about next steps here in a little bit. But just know that we are here to continue to walk you through it, to continue to make you feel comfortable, and to answer any questions that we can to the very best of our ability. So with that, I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to introduce you. Oh, I'm sorry. I had one more slide. False alarm. So again, our projects are very incremental. One of the things that's important to us is that each project has to support itself financially, or it has to stand on its own. So in other words, we never want to build a building that current residents have to subsidize. So it has to work on its own financially. And more important than that, it has to also contribute to the village's overall financial strength. Again, the board carefully scrutinizes everything that we do. We do try really, really hard to minimize campus disruption, but you all know that construction is just a messy endeavor as it is, but we work really hard to ensure, and I think from my perspective, the E-building would get a really good job of trying to keep that as minimally disruptive as we possibly could. And then some of the projects we're going to talk about are going to require some resident relocations. And so, we're going to make sure that we give residents that will have to relocate plenty of notice. The area managers are going to work very closely with them to make sure that they find a place that meets their individual needs. And then, of course, there's a point in time where we will have to stop selling into some of these areas of the village because, we, again, want to be upfront and honest with people. And we don't want to have to relocate unnecessarily. So, all right. So, I'd like to introduce you for the first time to Meadows North. So, if you've been around for a while, this was actually the original part of the Meadows strategic plan was to build the first three, to do an expansion on the east side, and to do an expansion on the west side. And so we have been working closely with the board to bring this to life. So we will be adding 47 new apartments on green space. One of the beauties of the Meadows is that having done it now a couple different times, we know exactly which apartment models are going to be successful. We know which ones the market really doesn't like. And so we have cherry-picked the 5 most popular models, and we're going to build that. The other advantage with Meadows expansion is that because we already have floor plans, the pre-development phase of this, we are able to accelerate pretty rapidly. So it's going to be 4 stories above a parking garage. It's going to add a community room that's going to be about the size of the current fitness center. And then we're putting 2 elevators in there because we do know that lightning strikes occasionally. And so we want to make sure that moving forward, every building that we build has 2 elevators. So here's our timeline. Again, there's no resident relocations, which is also another really nice silver lining to this. We are going to start marketing this to people on our priority list at the end of this month. Our goal is to go to the financing in the late spring or early summer, and we would begin construction immediately after that. We anticipate the timeline to be similar to Meadows East expansion or to the E-building, about 16 months. And so we're really excited. This is going to add a lot of value to our campus. And I mentioned that we have 90 people that are on a priority waiting list. 40 of them specifically have requested an apartment in the Meadows. So I told the sales team the work's pretty much already been done. So we should be able to fill this up like that. They didn't like that, but all right. Next, I want to talk a little bit about an area called the Country Club Corridor. So this is where, if you've been paying attention, there have been a lot of work that's been done as we're trying to really understand the area and see what we're getting into. So before I go to what we're thinking, I want to make sure everyone understands what that area is. So if you go west to east prior to Shamrock, and then south to north, you take O'Brien to Chipman, it's 25 acres. If we were a normal life plan community, that would be about the size of our entire community. For us, it's a portion of it. And so we're looking to incrementally redevelop this whole area over time. The slide says 5 to 10 years. It's likely going to be much closer to 10. We have 2 components that we're working on with this. One is called the Country Club Estates. These are hybrid homes, which I will try to define my best what that is. But those are going to be on the north side of the current lake. And I'll say current. Just put that one back in your brain. And then the other component is going to be what we're calling the Country Club Towers. It is going to be a brand new apartment complex on the south of the lake. So this project is really going to change the entire face of the village. So I want everyone to kind of take a moment and think about when you're driving down Pryor and you're looking past the lake and you see the golf course, what that looks like today. And here's what it's going to look like in 10 years. So as you can see, we are going to be revamping our golf course to make it a little bit nicer. We're going to add a second lake. We have a terrific walkway, which I will talk about in a little bit. And then if you look on the mid left-hand portion of the screen, you will see that these are the Country Club Estates or hybrid villas. If you look right in the middle, you will see the Meadows with the north expansion. And then if you look kind of at the bottom towards the right, you will see where the towers are going to go. I should also mention that all of this is going to be available in a special publication of the Village Voice that comes out tomorrow. So you will have all these images. So if it's tough to see or anything like that, you're going to have all of this in print tomorrow, as well as pretty much everything that I'm saying. The information in the slide decks is going to be in that Village Voice. This presentation is also going to be available on JKV TV. It's going to air there. And then if your neighbors weren't able to make it, it's going to be on our YouTube page. Here's another rendering. So again, you see front and center, those are the Country Club Estate or hybrid villas. And then towards the right-hand portion of the screen, towards the top, are the Country Club Towers. So I'm going to jump right in and describe what each of these projects look like. So for Country Club Estates, these are going to be 6, what we're calling a hybrid home. So it's kind of a combination of a villa and an apartment. So it's only going to be 3 floors above parking. Each floor is going to have 5 units. They're going to range from 1,400, 1,600, and 1,800 square feet. So it's going to be a feel, kind of a mix between an apartment, but you're going to have that really tight communal area as well to get to know your neighbors. I don't know at this point if these people are going to be street people or if they're going to be apartment people. You all will have to help them decide. It's kind of going to be a hybrid, so we'll figure it out. We have board approval, and we are going to start with 1 building. The goal is to add 5 more over time. It will be a total of 90 units once we're finished. The first 3 hybrid homes are going to be located in what we call the North Side Triangle, specifically where Shamrock Circle is. And then the later 3 will be where the current Country Club apartments are, so Villa 1, Manor 1, and Lakeside. Now, we are not anticipating starting on the final 3 really until probably about 2030. This project will change a little bit of the road systems that we have here. So we will actually terminate Peace Parkway at Shamrock, and we'll be extending Faith Drive to Pryor Road. So current timeline, we do have 3 residents that are going to be relocating from Shamrock Circle in order to build the first hybrid. We did communicate with them in early September that need, and we're working closely with them to find the right home. As I mentioned earlier, we've started to do some site testing and soil samples. We are going to begin marketing this product later on this month. So this is going to go hand in hand with Meadows North, both with the marketing and the financing. So we are going to finance this project in conjunction with the Meadows. We feel, and some of our consultants feel, like that makes it more desirable to bondholders and could generate a better interest rate for us, which is good for the village long term. And then immediately after we receive financing, we'll begin construction. And this one is a little shorter timeline. This will take about 12 months. So again, there is no schedule or timeline right now for any of the hybrids outside of the first one. And in order for us to move forward, we need to make sure that the first one does well. So this is a new product for us. We've never done anything like this. We believe that the market and future residents are really going to like this style of living. We have talked to other communities across the country that have built these, and what we have been told is as soon as you build some, you're going to need to build more because they are very, very popular. But we're going to wait and see, which we feel is a smart plan to really test the market. The residents that live north of Peace Parkway and Shamrock are going to be contacted as soon as we know we're going to need to relocate them. And then the replacement of the country club apartments, so the last 3 hybrids are not expected, as I mentioned, until 2030 or later. And that is if everything goes according to plan. And I'll tell you why we're thinking that we should wait until 2030 to do that here in a moment. So this is a rendering of what the country club estates or hybrid homes are going to look like. So again, you'll see parking on the first floor. It'll have its own dedicated entrance, and then there will be 3 floors of housing above that. And each floor is going to have 5 units. And these are going to be some of our larger floor plans that we've ever done, again, between 1,400 and 1,800 square feet. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Country Club Tower. So this is the new apartment complex that we are planning. It is 2 separate and distinct towers that are connected by a common area below. It is going to be either 7 or 8 stories above garage parking, which I will tell you is not only going to be the largest building we have on campus, but it will be the tallest housing unit in Lee Summit. As we've been working with the city on this plan and talking to some of the city officials, one of the comments they made to us is we don't have an 8-story apartment complex in Lee Summit, but we're happy that if there is going to be one, the first one is at John Knox Village, which we took to be an honor. As of right now, we believe it's going to be 100+ units. So again, we're still kind of penciling this out, but we are anticipating 100+. The floor plans on this are going to range from a little over 1,000 up to 2,200 square feet. The top 2 floors of the apartment are really going to have true penthouse-like feels, size, and an environment. And then we will have parking below the building. There will be 1 spot for each unit. So this is a view. If you are looking north towards Chipman, you'll see Pryor is there on the left-hand side. O'Brien is right below the towers. Here's a look if you are looking south. You see the lake right there. If you look in between the towers, you'll see a lot of green space. So that's where we're going to have a lot of the amenities. It's going to be a really nice walking path for everyone. I don't know how you feel, but I don't currently feel like our lake is incredibly accessible. And so this will really make it not just a visual feature, but something that everyone can tap into. And then here's a view if you're looking from O'Brien. So part of the topography of that area is that it does kind of move down towards the lake. So part of the vision for this is if you were standing on O'Brien and you were looking between the towers, you could see down through the building to the lake and see the golf course. And then you will see the Country Club Estates in the background. So this is what excites me because this is the part that really does benefit the entire village. So we are going to make enhancements to the golf course and the lake. I will show you the picture, but there's going to be a new walking trail. It's going to go all the way from Chipman and Pryor down to the clubhouse. It's going to be about a mile long. It really ties in with this concept that we've been working on about promoting health and longevity and good, healthy aging. We are going to have a brand new clubhouse for the golfers. It's going to have at least 1 golf simulator. So for you golfers, you'll be able to play 365 days a year, no matter what the weather is. We're going to have at least 1 new dining venue. And Todd's already been hard at work thinking about that concept and what that could be. And I'll just tell you, we're not sure what it is yet, but I'm really excited about some of the ideas that I have heard. I'll show you a picture of the boardwalk that's going to be overlooking the lake. It will add another community room to our campus. We're always in need of more space, so it'll be similar in size to the Meadows Community Center. We are adding a to-be-defined wellness space, and there's a lot of concepts that we've thrown out. So it could be another fitness center. It could be something that we have never done before, like in terms of a spa or something like that. Again, these are all areas that we're working through. It will have its own concierge desk. That'll be a new concierge, and it will have an area manager office that will be filled by a brand new area manager. So we will also be adding a fourth area manager to the campus when this building opens. And then it's going to have, very importantly for us, is our entire sales and marketing team is going to be able to move in there. So we've done a lot of work at the Villager the last few years. It is still not the best first impression when people come on our campus. This will be the best first impression when people first step foot here. And so we're really excited to have that. And then, of course, if you look at Pryor and O'Brien, it'll really create what I would call a true front door to the village. So a place that people know that they enter. And again, as Pryor Road gets busier and busier, it's going to make it more and more visible for our neighborhood. So this is a look at the boardwalk. If you look behind it, you'll see some of the windows from the common area. This is an area that we are envisioning having, again, at least one of the restaurants. So you'll be able to dine, outside, looking over the lake. I think of Florida when I think of something like this, or if you've ever been to Marina 27 down at Lake Lotawana, it has just incredible views. So that's a similar type of feel that we're looking at here. And again, you can see the size of the apartment in the background there. Going back to the first image that you saw, if you look at that walking trail that starts at the northwest corner of the campus and goes all the way down to the rec center, there's going to be a lot of different walking trails throughout the campus. Again, we want to have accessibility so that people can pursue their health and wellness goals. If you've heard me talk once, you've heard me say 100 times that the most important thing any of us can do is get out and walk. And so we want to create more accessibility for that. Again, adding to the lake for our golfers, some of you may not think that our golf course is challenging enough. So what if we throw some sand traps your way? Really test your game. We're going to see those scores go up pretty quick. And then again, additional enhancements to that lakefront that's really going to make that part of the campus shine. So here's a timeline for the towers. We are going to begin relocations here the middle of this year all the way through the middle of next year. We're going to start marketing to the community late this year. At some point in 2027, we'll begin the abatement and demolishment of those properties. And then the goal is to take this project to financing in the fall of next year, which we would start construction immediately thereafter. This is a very big project for us. So the design time on this one is 2 full years. Again, we're well into that, but we've got a long way to go. And because of the size of it, the construction period is going to take a while. So it's going to take about 2 years start to finish for us to build this building. We are expecting to welcome new residents to our community in late 2029 or early 2030. So again, I mentioned earlier the financial impact that is something that is really important to us, that we want to make sure we're always adding to the financial strength of the village. We're ensuring that we have a sustainable community for decades to come. So these are going to be a significant investment for us. We're looking at the tune of about $200 to $220 million for all of the projects that you've seen. Again, we continue to go through a very rigorous process with these to make sure that they model out well financially for us. We have created a lot of different, what we'll call on-ramps and off-ramps. So there's ways that we can accelerate. There's ways that we can decelerate depending on how the project goes. We always have to be sensitive to what's happening in our community, what's happening in our country, and what's happening in our world. A couple examples of that is, if you recall, in the early 2000s, we were going to build a community across Pryor Road called Forest Lake. And then the recession hit, and we made the decision that we were not going to go forward with that project. Probably one of the best decisions we have ever made. And then if you remember that back during the pandemic, again, a lot of things that were happening, most communities chose to stop redevelopment or development. We made the conscious choice that we were going to continue, and we moved forward with Meadows Phase 2. And that's been a really, really successful project for us. And so we always need to be sensitive to what's happening in the world around us. But there are various points in time, throughout this process that we could hit the pause button and say, we need to really circle back and make sure that this is the right thing to do. So we've started to create that. And again, we've been working closely with the board of directors over the last couple of years. So our pledge to you as residents, if you're needing to be relocated, we're going to work very closely with you to find the right home for you. We take care of all the packing, the moving, and the unpacking. So if you just want to sit there in your recliner, you're more than welcome to do so. We will take care of every single thing. Your area manager is going to be the main point of contact. And then we are going to go into more details in the different neighborhood meetings that we are having in the near future. So for the impacted neighborhoods, we did meet with the Northside Cottage residents this morning. We are meeting with Villa and Manor residents next week. And then in February, we are meeting with the residents of Cherry Peach and O'Brien Circle. As I mentioned earlier, for all of you, this is going to be available in the Village Voice that's coming out tomorrow. It's a very special publication, and we're going to be broadcasting this on all of our various networks. I will tell you that if you all want to learn more outside of this meeting, you know that you are more than welcome to invite any of us to come speak to your neighborhood group. If you want to talk to us one-on-one, we are happy to do that. We want to make sure that if you have questions, we can do our best to answer those, but we are always available for you. So just reach out and let us know if you want us to learn more. Again, we've got this presentation, so we can pack it up and bring it anywhere that you want us to bring it. And then as we have more updates, we will use the Village media to make sure that you stay connected, that you stay aware, that you stay up to date. And of course, as always, we will work hard to minimize how disruptive this is to you as residents. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a second. I'm going to invite a couple of people up to the front. We're going to have Maria and Eric. And is Mary Beth coming up? Yeah, we'll have Mary Beth come up. Again, if you have specific questions about construction, Steve Segerman, our CFO, he had to leave early today to go to a meeting. So if you have some financial questions, you can ask them, and I will do my best, and the team will do our best to answer. But if we can't get an answer for you, we will take down your question and we will get back to you. Lisa and Melissa are here with microphones, so if you can wait on your question until they give you the mic, and I'm going to sit down and we'll get going.
That light is just shining.
Really good.
Tara. And Teddy is taking notes. Teddy is taking notes in the back of the room, so we'll capture all this.
First of all, thank you so much for being so transparent and thinking of all of us. We really appreciate that. And that light, what happens at the point where people that get moved, there's no place to move them except to the new construction?
So I think that is one of the nice things about this project, is because it is so phased, that there are going to be a lot of opportunities to find not just a home, but the right home for various residents. If we were to say we were going to do this all at one time, it probably wouldn't be possible. And so, that there are a lot of reasons why we chose to phase this project, but existing residents are always the number one priority before future residents. And so that's one of the big reasons why we're phasing it. I failed to mention during the presentation, but that's another reason why we are waiting until 2030 before we take down Villa 1 and Manor 1, is because we would be taking out the golfers lounge, a restaurant, and a salon and a meeting space without having an adequate replacement. So we will not be tearing those properties down until we have the towers that are built. So we have all those amenities that are already up and running. So you're not having a loss, during that time.
And I would just add that I know a lot of you have asked, why aren't you moving anybody in next to me? And why is my street, I'm thinking Peach and Sherry, becoming a little more empty? In some of those areas, we have already kind of stopped selling into some of those areas so that we know that the residents that are there we're able to take care of, and we don't have as many that we have to relocate.
I'm curious to know how this is going to affect month-to-month rental residents when a lot of them can't afford or won't buy into these new places.
Yeah, if you want to.
One of the beauties of the village is that we have a lot of diversity in our housing product. And so, we do still have the Villager complex, and we have FG&H and even A, B, and C. And we feel like we'll be able to accommodate those residents and still have a variety of price points and a range of options available for the folks to live here.
Yes, Decker.
Was it not?
It's on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I didn't hear anything about any new phases for the street people. Yeah, the villas.
The annual villa program will continue. We have phase 13 under construction right now. We'll be starting phase 14 in the spring per the normal schedule. We've already got those homes identified. There's a nice stretch on the north side of Killarney, and that phase will not require any resident relocations. Yeah, and phase 13 is already also out.
That's a great question. I think Can
you repeat the question?
The question is do we know how many phases we're going to complete over time? And I think that as our inventory, our homes age, that kind of helps us dictate. A lot of the decision on tearing down and doing a rebuild has to do with the age, floor plan, and the cost of renovation. A lot of the homes that have come down because there's a lot of issues that's going to be pretty costly from a renovation standpoint to get it ready for a new person, that it makes more sense to tear it down and create a better, newer home. So I think as our homes age over time, I don't think at this point we can say exactly how many phases, but I think as long as our homes are continuing to age, we will have an opportunity to continue to redevelop our streets for our street people.
I wondered what about the homes, the residences that are currently unoccupied, like the building to the west of Manor One and other places, street people homes. What's going to happen to them that are unoccupied?
No, sure.
I'm not sure I understand.
Can you repeat that question? We're not sure we understand what you're asking.
I wonder, could you explain what are you going to be doing with the buildings that are the homes and buildings and apartments that are unoccupied now?
He mentioned Lakeshore as well.
Oh, Lakeshore will come down as part of the Country Club Estates project.
And then there are 5 structures. For those of you familiar with the golf course, the 5 structures that are north of hole number 3, those are the first 5 structures that will come down for the very first hybrid villa.
I just want to make a comment. It's nice to know that we're actually going to bid in the 2025 and out of the 1970s.
There's any questions, sir?
What's the long-term outlook for FGH and the Villager complex? I know F Valley's approaching 50 years old now.
That's a very good question. Well, I will tell you that, during the presentation, I mentioned that this current plan is going to take us out about 10 years. And so I would say we have no plans for the next 10 years for any parts of those areas. We need to be focused on the country club corridor.
I had a question to that. Currently, in Killarney, in our neighborhood, there are people that are being told that they are going to move because you're going to be bulldozing their homes, and they're planning on moving them over to Lakeside in those apartments that are there. And then you're going to bulldoze that down. So in like 29 or 30. So you're going to be forcing them to move twice?
I'm not sure who that would be.
In terms of Killarney, I don't believe we're moving anybody into those apartment buildings that would be coming down. Have we moved anybody? Not that I know of. And we have been trying to let our natural attrition drive the homes that we're tearing down and rebuilding on Killarney. We have, either have been situations where a few people have moved to higher levels of care and chosen to move to different areas. But our goal would never be to move someone into a building that is in the near future that we know of that is going to be coming down. So we would not at this point in time be moving anyone into that one of those areas. I hope that answers that question.
Would there ever be a time in foreseeing the long term where current residents would be allowed to move into new construction?
Let me take that one.
Fine, going.
Okay. The question is there a time where people who are currently living here, current residents, could move into any of the new construction? Everybody is, of course, always welcome to do so, but the concern is the cost. So there is a cost to build these buildings, and so you would basically be paying a new entry fee on top of what you've already paid. Most people don't want to do that, but you could if you wanted to. And we do have to do it that way because of the bond commitments and the financial commitments. And Steve, if he was here, could probably speak way more eloquently. But because of the cost, these projects, I think, as Anthony mentioned, have to pay for themselves. And if we let people just move straight in or pay maybe even an enhanced cost, it would not cover the cost of the project itself.
When the current theater was built, it was built too small. I didn't hear anything about a new theater, but I sure wish you could find space for a new theater that's about twice the size of the one that we now have.
So this came up in a group discussion earlier, and so we understand that there are a lot of interest in fine arts here, and Maria can kind of talk a little bit. Oh, the movie theater. I'm sorry. Oh, we do not have at this point in time a movie theater in the plans, but we're still kind of in the thinking through all the amenities that would be in the country club towers. So.
We've talked about adding a lot of new residents, which is great. How does that affect the assisted care availability?
That's a very good question. So, I would say a couple things. One of them is that when you look at the net amount of residents that we'd be increasing in these areas, it's really not a substantial amount. And so there are some other things that we are working on as an organization to make sure that we have plenty of access to care. There has been a recent where village assisted living has been pretty full. And so, we are working on some plans. One of the things that we've been working on the last couple of years that you're going to hear more and more about, and this is going to impact future residents, but it's going to impact you all too, is that we're trying to evolve healthcare that rather than just having this continuum that you move through as your healthcare needs change, that we have healthcare that you can access when, where, and how you want to. And so when I've talked to all of you individually or collectively, I've never heard anyone tell me, I hope I get to move to the Village Care Center one day. It's nice to have, and we like that we have a good care center, and it's a very strong, part of our campus, but the goal is to help you age in place as long as possible. So we need to do both, and we need to make sure we're enhancing our healthcare services. Now, with the care center, there are some opportunities that we've identified and that we are actively exploring. Assisted living does get a little bit more complicated, but again, it's all part of the conversation. But the total net change in residents is not going to be that substantial. And actually, Melissa pointed out in a meeting this morning that just a few years ago, 10 or 15, we used to have 2,000 independent living residents, and all of our healthcare needs were met. And now we have about half of that. And so what really gets impacted, I think, a lot when we talk about healthcare is the access from the community into different areas. We've really had to limit that over the years, which, that's not our number one priority, but those are the group of people that are the most impacted.
Okay, this is about the monthly fee increase. So with all the new construction and that's going on, is the increase going to be less than 5.9?
Well, it's hard to say year to year what the fee increase is going to be. You will find out here in February what we're doing for next year, and I don't want to take Steve's thunder, but as I mentioned, part of the purpose of doing these projects is so it enhances the financial strength of the village so that we don't have to do large increases because we have that stability. We know that there are organizations. We know there's an associate that works here. His parents are in a community in St. Louis, and they're getting a 9% increase this year. And so we always try to, buffer you all from substantial increases or mid-year increases. And so these projects are meant to help build financial strength so we can not have to go to our residents for large monthly service fee increases.
This is a question for Eric over here. Notice that Faith Drive is going to be the new exit for Pryor. Is there going to be a light there, or are you going to be able to go across the street and go south? You're going to, and that's pretty close to Chipman, and traffic is terrible anyway, and it's really going to back up. So how's that going to work?
Well, we had this conversation earlier this morning. We're actually big enough and old enough now that we're doing things for the second time. There actually used to be a road that connects to Pryor from Shamrock at pretty much that same location. So that is part of what's being reviewed by the city right now. They are reviewing the preliminary development plan for that area, and the city will come back with the criteria for that street connection. So we do think it'll be convenient to have that road connect right across from the service road that goes on the north side of the care center and over to the operations building and the warehouse. But the city will make the determination of what all the requirements are. We are anticipating things like a left-hand turn lane, potentially a stoplight at that location, but it has been done before.
Yes. First suggestion, when you build the Meadows North, put in an elevator that works. And number two, put in one that's oversized. Trying to move furniture and boxes in a 6 by 6 foot elevator up and down 4 and 5 stories is almost ridiculous. You know, that there should be a freight elevator in there somewhere.
We're working on that. I can't tell who's talking right now. I think it might be God.
And then secondly, since you've got these new high rises, you're going to need a high rise cherry picker sooner or later. It would be nice if you would get that now. Those of us in Meadows East, and our windows really haven't been washed in years because you've got a guy standing on the ground with a 44-foot plastic rod trying to wash windows. And we've got bird droppings on our windows that have never left.
Let's not get out the pitchforks just yet.
Well, it'd be nice to get a cherry picker and a couple of guys who could wash windows.
We are looking at that different window washing opportunity right now. We're going to probably be pricing that later this month.
First of all, good job. Being part of the golf league, I want you to know that I own that house on number 3 North. And I could save you a lot of money by me knocking it down all the time. So the other thing is, I really appreciate that you took the golf to another level, having sand traps or whatever in a clubhouse. But the thing, I hope you're thinking about electric carts, and I hope you're putting the electric gizmos in there, and I hope sales out of those 90 people will get the carts, unless you have it in the budget to buy new ones. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Duly noted.
The parking garage will have a dedicated area for the golf carts. So they'll be kept in a secured area in the parking garage under the building that will be adjacent to the clubhouse.
This very ambitious plan is going to require workers. I hope the board will be working with the city to provide low-cost housing so we can open up some of our restaurants, which can't service now.
Can you repeat that, Dick? I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
I said this very ambitious plan is going to require workers. So the board needs to be working with the city in somehow providing more low-cost housing so we can get the non-skilled people here to service.
Yes, so that's a good point. Again, that's an area that's probably outside of our control. I will say that at various city council meetings that we have gone to, that has been a focal point of this current mayor and the city council. They've talked a lot about the need for low-cost housing. Not to get into the weeds, but there's been a lot of analysis of how many people actually leave the summit to go to their jobs, and it's a lot. And so we want people to be able to live, stay, and work in these summits. So I know that the city, and especially some of the new land that has been for sale recently, that's an area that they're looking at very closely.
I beg, plead, get down on my knees, and whatever else it takes, when you do the landscaping, please bring in native plants. We have almost none on this campus. We have very few birds on this campus. We need oak, we need cottonwood, and we need shrubs that don't get the buds trimmed off in the fall so that they can bloom in the spring. And if you need some help, yell. I'll help.
Thank you, Judy.
I want to just mention that our foundation has done many things in all of our buildings. Even years ago, from the first time, I think starting in 1980 something, when the foundation came into existence here. So a lot of the people that are new, when we have a lot of the amenities that we do have, a lot of those are there because of the foundation and because of the contributions that we all give that help ourselves. So I'm sure there will be times as new buildings get built, you'll see that we ourselves will have an opportunity to do things. It may be a theater. It may be golf carts, which we've done. The foundation even purchased some years back equipment for the golf course. So these things will happen. So just write them down as you think about it, as some of the construction's going on. And I'm sure Gail will be thrilled to also take that on as a project. It always happens.
I think it's important to know that Gail is in the back and she did not pay Margot to say that. So.
Hi, everybody. Deb Jones here. Only been here about 3 years. Know everybody up there. You absolutely have taken my breath away. I think we all feel like that, so overwhelmed with all of these lovely plans. I have to reiterate the concern that we have for the upper floor people who are handicapped in case there's a fire. We have no way of getting them down or out. The E building, when I went in to see it, I was so pleased because there are ramps everywhere. I'm hoping the new buildings will have that also. That is just a worry that we have all the time. How are we going to get our friends and neighbors down those stairs and out of the building? One of the ladies here wants to know, does the fire department have a ladder truck that can reach this height in case of fire? That's a main concern. And my second question is, and Maria knows it, everybody up there knows it because I've been embarking this project for 4 years, but is there any plans for us to have some space for the ladies to gather and do crafts and sew and build our community and our relationships? You know, I've been barking for 4 years up this tree, and poor Maria, her ankles are just bit. And she keeps saying, I've got this, we're talking about it. But I hear about the sand traps, the pickleball courts, and all those lovely things. But, you know, I'm a sewer, and I think we have a lot of sewers here and a lot of ladies who would just like to come into a community and build a relationship. So hurrah for John Knox. It's going to be a beautiful place, but please, please, please tell us something about the handicapped people too.
Well, I can tell you that when Eric and his team meet with the city, there's usually like 25 people from the city on those Teams calls, and he can expand on that. And we work with the water department, the fire department, the development department. I don't even know all the departments. It's quite extensive. So they would not approve any kind of project that they can't access. And it's usually Jim Eden, Assistant Chief Jim Eden, who's involved. I see Chad Corder just stood up. That was just circumstantial. And Terry Eagleston were here from EMS and Public Safety. There are extensive plans in coordination with the fire department if we have to evacuate a building to ensure that people of any capability will be evacuated appropriately. We could get into a whole side conversation, and I'm happy to do that individually or at a neighborhood group about fair housing laws and American with Disability Act and what we can or cannot do. And that's like a whole side discussion, but we do have extensive plans with the fire department so that we could effectively evacuate a building if and when we need to do that. And Teddy and Melissa, Jeff Hobbs probably remember one time when we did have to do that.
Yeah. And remember, stairwells in apartment buildings are fire rated. That's where you go if there's a fire, and that's where you'll be rescued from if you're concerned about not being able to get out of the building. Stairwells are fire rated. Okay. Sorry.
Next question. We were just wondering if there are any plans in place for a preventative maintenance program for the village that you have here already.
We are working. In fact, John Spears, our current facilities manager, is retiring this coming August. We have already hired John's replacement. He started on Tuesday this week. In conjunction with the new worksite plan that we're putting into the process, we're going to try to do a better job with that.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, and I'm going to start sounding like a broken record here pretty soon, but the more and more of these projects that we complete successfully, it feeds our capital budget year in, year out. You know, I can tell you when I started 9+ years ago, I was told the only way to get something fixed is if it's broken. And we've made a lot of progress since then. We have a long ways to go, but the more and more successful and sound we are financially, the more that it adds to our ability to not just fix things when they break, but proactively have things on a schedule. You know, one example, I come from the nursing home background, and, you know, I've long felt that every skilled nursing facility needs their carpet replaced every 6-ish years. And so we need to start having things on a schedule. So that's a conversation that Erica and I have had, and we're on the same page, and we're finally starting to get to the point financially where that's a reality.
I know, Anthony, you touched on this earlier about a new dining facility in the new country club corridor, but can you tell us any more about what's going on, or do we just have to, the people who eat at Lakeside, do we need to talk with Todd? And I mean, I'm counting 200 plus new units coming in. How are you going to feed all these people? And I know it's phased in, so what phase are you going to have it come in?
Right. The new dining venue or venues would be in the Country Club Towers, which is where Peach, Cherry, and O'Brien Circle is now. So those buildings wouldn't be anticipated to be completed until late 2029 or possibly early 2030. So that's, again, as Anthony said, that's why we wouldn't tear down the current Country Club complex until after the new Towers complex was built, so we would not be taking away Lakeside Dining prematurely. So, you know, Todd is man about town in all the restaurants, food groups. He actively collects information all the time. But we have not defined the dining venue or dining venues in that building yet. So, as Anthony said, we're ready to go on a couple projects. The other ones are in a longer development, and the commons in the Towers complex, other than a dedicated golf focus, is still to be defined. So we're going to be working through that. We also know that we have capacity in our restaurants as they are. You know, Places isn't open on Mondays right now. We don't have breakfast at all of the restaurants. So we would be looking at, over time, continuing to evaluate resident traffic patterns at the restaurants to determine where we needed to leverage our open hours, you know, and whether we need to evolve the menus or the price points, all those kinds of things that come together in the restaurant. So we're very mindful of how important dining is. In fact, I just give you a little heads up. You know, you all completed the resident satisfaction and engagement survey last fall. And our dining, compared to the benchmark of the survey company that serves retirement communities all across the country, our restaurants compare very, very favorably. Places Restaurant, I don't remember what the score was, and I'm looking at Todd back there. It was 4.47 maybe, something like that. Was it the 96th percentile of the Holland benchmark that represents 44,000 seniors in retirement communities across the country? So we know how important dining is here, and we want to do it right, and we want it to be an overall program across the entire campus, offer choices of price point, menus, environments, hours, days, all those kind of things as a whole, so people can make choices. We know one of the great things about the Village that we want to continue is choice. I mean, that also came out in the verbatim comments in the resident survey. We like that we have variety, we have choice, we have opportunity. We can make the decisions we want to make about how to live our lives here, and we know how critically important dining is, but we just aren't there yet on what those decisions are. Another 6 months, we might be closer, so it's just a process.
Yes, I guess I didn't, with all this information, I didn't get a clear like when the cottages are coming down, like on Cherry. I'm just asking because it's really bad over there because there's a lot of empty ones. Like the whole building next to ours is empty, and the longer they sit, they tend not to look good. And it's kind of unfair to the people that are left. So I guess my question is, I don't know, can you give us a timeline? Or the other question would be, would we be able to say we would rather leave early? And when could we leave? Maybe that they would pay for us to move.
We, this group, well, Eric, Melissa, Anthony, and I are going to be with the Cherry, Peach, and O'Brien Circle residents at their February 6th meeting, because you already had a meeting scheduled. So we're tapping into that. And we can go into more details about that then. However, just generally speaking, we would anticipate those relocations running from about mid-2026 to mid-2027, with you working closely with Melissa based on your individual needs and wants. And again, having that year-long opportunity allows us to ensure that we can better accommodate everybody and meet their needs versus if we tried to move everybody, in 3 months, because the inventory would be different. We need to wait till inventory becomes available so we can really meet everybody's needs. Oh, and we would be taking care of the expenses, the packing, the moving, the unpacking expenses related to that.
Okay, so if we would say we would want to move sooner, then I don't know how soon would they be able to tell us, like how soon could we move where yous would pay for the move?
Yeah, if you wanted to move earlier than that, then when we would start the program, you would just go on our regular internal move wait list, and you would be responsible for those moving expenses.
But you do right now see maybe 2026?
Yeah, starting in mid-2026, and we usually go by seniority, so whoever's been there the longest. But again, there's different people who have different needs, and so Melissa is a pro working through that process. For those of you long-timers here know that when we did the Meadows, we told 102 households that they were going to have to relocate. Melissa was the one who led that charge. So I feel very confident that we will be able to meet needs as effectively as we did then. It's a very individualized thing. What's most important to somebody? Is it having a walkout patio because they have a dog, or is it facing west, or is it having a big kitchen, or different things are important to different people. So having that longer time frame to work through that with people will help us be more successful in meeting those individual needs. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Melissa.
I think that covers it. We're good. My question is about your storm shelters. I've always wondered how, if we needed to use those shelters, if you could make it down the stairs, there's no comfort at all, no benches. They had to stand up, during this emergency, and you don't know how long you're going to be in that shelter. And I thought that John Knox could at least put a bench or something so that you could at least sit down if you had to stay in that shelter, if you could make it down the stairs.
Just as a reminder, if we are already in a warning, that is not the time to go to the shelter. So a lot of people don't want to go during a watch, because here in the Midwest, we can be in a watch phase for literally hours. But we have at times seen residents trying to get to a shelter, in one of the non-apartment areas during the height of a storm, during a warning, and we don't want you to do that. Why don't, if Lisa can find out, because Lisa's standing right there, find out where you live, and then we can, try to address that. Your concern.
Tell me your first name. Me. Okay, lost.
Yeah.
You got somebody over here?
Oh, okay.
Hi. I have a twofold question. One is,
For all these new places that are being built, it sounds really exciting. It does. But having watched some construction here in the village since I've been here 13 years, it seems that it's not always with those of us disabled in a wheelchair or very dependent on a walker have the amenities that we need in the new places. I'm just wondering what advice, where are you getting your information to make sure? I know there are enough disabled people here in the village that would be glad to give some help, but that has not been well received. So I'm interested in that. My other thing is, in the last year, due to circumstances, I've been in independent living. I'm now in assisted living, and I spent a number of months in a care center. I think it's common knowledge that the care center, speaking of older buildings, has been there a long time. I know when I was there, it was like, uh-oh, it's going to rain. Where is it going to leak today? Those kinds of things. It's not at all friendly to somebody in a wheelchair as far as living in the room. So my question is, where on this long-term plan are more assisted living and the care center needing to be more update or modernized? And what are you using for planning for disability in the places that are already going to be coming?
The answer to that question is the Americans with Disabilities Act and current building codes, for the most part.
Do you want to talk about healthcare again?
I think if you're talking about amenities and activities specifically, that would be something that we're interested in. As I mentioned earlier, we're always trying to balance the needs and wants of current versus future residents. So 10 years ago, I would never have predicted that we were going to build a pickleball court. Just would not have known that was going to be something that was going to be appealing. And yet here we are, because we have current residents and we know future residents that's one of their main hobbies. So I think that if there are special interests, that are appealing, we would like to certainly know about those. Now, we can't do everything for every special interest on campus, but certainly at least having an awareness is important. For the care center, the care center is an aging building. It is one that we are looking very closely at. And what I would say, again, broken record Anthony here, is that a lot of these different projects that we're doing are helping us create financial capacity so that we can dream bigger than we could before. I would tell you a couple of years ago, we would never have thought about the idea of building a new care center. Now, is it in the next 10 years? Probably not. Do we need to make some enhancements and improvements to it? Absolutely. Yeah. Eric and I have had multiple conversations that really we need to find a way to make sure the care center can last 10 more years. So we do need to do some work there. There are some things that we are talking about right now, again, that are in the discussion phase. And I don't mean to be coy. Just until they become an actual plan, we don't want to get anyone's hopes up. And so I would just say we're aware that there are some challenges with the care center, and we are actively discussing it.
Just kind of as an aside, I kind of smiled when you said that, because when I started working here, which was April 5th, 1988, the big project was building the new care center, and it was going to be 430 beds, and it was full. And everybody was so excited about this new care center. And now, look, fast forward to now, and it was, state of the art at the time. And we know it's not anymore. But we also know that, those are our most vulnerable residents, and we do want to provide, a high level of care. And the building does fit into that. So it is something that we continue to talk about and try to find a way, like Anthony said, to keep the current building going until we're in a position where we could do something different, and we all want to make that happen. It is something that needs to happen, and we want to make it happen.
Okay, for a small question, this is not about getting people out of burning buildings. It's not about getting your house torn down around you. It's things, Anthony brought it up himself. He's mentioned pickleball 4 times. He never once mentioned ping pong, which is my boyfriend's interest, and you never mentioned it. It was there when
Yes.
It's a refurbing, but it, you saw what up. The other question you mentioned, because Lee Summit is growing, and you said John Knox was a big influence. You mentioned the new Costco. Well, I've been waiting for that as long as he's been waiting for ping pong.
Well, and I know Lita has been waiting for basketball too. So, yeah, that basketball hoop is going to be installed next week.
Yep.
Next week. So, yeah, you're right. It is not just about pickleball. It's about moving, right? Whether that's ping pong, racquetball, or not racquetball, ping pong and basketball and exercise classes and all of that.
You mentioned,
Yes, it is still absolutely, it's still in the plans. Yes.
you mentioned that in 2030, Zillow 1 and Manor would need to be replaced. So those residents, would they have to come up with their down payment or the buy-in? Because they're going to be forced to move and they've already paid their buy-in.
No, we would relocate. We would relocate those residents elsewhere on campus at our expense. So no, there would not be like a moving fee.
I was wondering, you haven't mentioned the total population of independent living forecast for the end of these projects after the towers in there, and what percentage are street people versus the apartments?
Well, we haven't figured out if the hybrids are street people or apartment people yet, so I'm not sure. I would say collectively with the projects, if you include the meadows, the hybrid villas, and the towers, it's going to be about 240-ish. No, more than that. 240 to probably 260-ish new homes. However, it's going to be replacing several hundred as well. So we'll get that math to you. The hard part is when we look at occupancy, and Mary Beth has her tons of spreadsheets, we have homes that we don't count in our occupancy because we can't occupy them. They're just taken out of circulation. And so if we include those in our occupancy, we would probably be netting close to zero new homes. But with homes that are actually, people will be able to move into, it will be a slight net positive, but we can get that exact number.
Then I need 1 second. Are the Yakis here? Can you raise your hand? They're on that far side. Okay. Somebody's coming to speak to you. So you want to keep your hand up.
Okay.
So the current residents versus the future projected, what's the total number of the independent living?
We'll get you those numbers. There's a few different ways we look at things. We can look at the number of units, we can look at square footage, or we can look at people. So we're going to do some side by side. We have all those numbers. We just don't have them with us today. So we can definitely put that together in a way that we can share that with the current residents.
Right. I was going to just clarify too, that when you think of the square feet, think of the Villa project as a whole. We've torn down a lot more units than we've replaced because we've built larger homes than what we tore down for the most part. And you're going to have some of that as well. So that plays into the calculus of how we factor those numbers in. Not necessarily always apples to apples.
There may be like one or two more questions. We're starting to lose some folks. And I will just reiterate what I said towards the end, that if you have questions that haven't been answered, or you would like any or all of us to come speak at a neighborhood group, we would be happy to do so. We certainly don't want to leave any hanging doubts or anxieties, but I know we're bumping up past 3:30 here, so.
If you all would want to, if you want to call me, you can, and then you can say, we really want to know more about the construction, so we want Eric there, or we want to know more about the marketing, we want Mary Beth there, or we want Anthony there. So Ginger and I can work together to get you the speaker or speakers that you want. And so, if you want to just shoot me an email or give me a call, we can get those scheduled.
Melissa?
Since a number of people have announced what year and what time they arrived. My mother moved in here in 1974, and I spent quite some time with her. And one of the things that always impressed me were the trees. There may be a tree or two or three that is still here that was planted in 1974. I'd be happy to participate on a campaign to raise money and treat this place again like nature. In nature, there are large trees in the forest, and around them there are younger trees coming along, and they do help support each other. I come from the background from a nature sanctuary that was 100 acres large. Is it possible to donate smaller trees that could be planted around the larger trees? Some of us moved here even this time, in this decade, because of the forest. I realize that when a tree gets a particular size, it must come down because it may fall on one of our houses. I understand that. And that can be studied too by a scientist. Thank you.
There is a tree fund with the foundation. I don't know if Gail is still here or not, but there is a tree fund with the foundation, and Dave Craver, our grounds manager, does work with Gail to utilize those funds. And so if that is something that's important to you and it can help accelerate what we would normally do. Okay.
Maybe we got one more.
What? Did you have one? Okay, I got one here.
Oh, I am in the D building, 107, the Gola level, and my dog and I walk right out the front door to the parking area outside the cafe. And we enjoy the grassy area by the pavilion, although there are about 5 trees there. Several years they've been there. And the dead branches are getting lower and lower. Nothing has been done about that. They have not removed those dead branches. If we have a storm or snowstorm, ice storm, whatever this winter, and there's cars parked there, those dead limbs are going to come crashing down and scratch the heck out of some of these cars. And I don't know why something hasn't been done. I've been here 9 years now.
All right.
That seems like a good place to end. We will take a look at those branches. Thank you.
One more. She's had her hand up for a long time. Hold on.
My son-in-law and my granddaughter are both orthopedic surgeons. And when they heard that we were adding a pickleball court out here, they said, "Oh, goody, the #1 cause of broken ankles." Just saying.
Sounds like a good place.
That sounds like as good a place to any. Oh, we got one more. Oh, Anna, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I just want to make a comment about the trees. There is a tree fund at the foundation, but we also move trees because we have found a tree spade, do you know what I mean, that will actually move trees up to 6 inches in diameter from one place on the campus to another. So we don't lose some of the trees that we actually plant with the tree fund. So they will continue to grow and become part of our urban forests that we miss so much.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. We will look forward to talking more and more. Appreciate you.